Hi there. So, did you know that orchestral templates can significantly improve your productivity and workflow when creating templates and getting started immediately? So, I will walk through like how to create an orchestral template in Pro Tools, showing some tips and tricks. Of course, it's all up to you then to create your template, but I will show three different ways of approaching this and certain tips and things that is good to remember when working with extensive orchestral templates. So let's get going with Pro Tools and see how it is done in real life. Okay, so I will go through how to create a template, and I have done some preparations in Pro Tools so that we don't start totally from scratch, and I'm spending times of doing all these mappings and things, but I will show how it is done so you get an idea on that one. I will introduce three different approaches regarding on like using a standalone instruments on a track, or then utilizing a Kontakt type of a library and Kontakt instruments, and then the third one is the most advanced one, utilizing a Vienna Ensemble Pro and moving actually the DSP out from Pro Tools to Vienna Ensemble Pro server. So that is, I would say, the most advanced way of doing it, because that could basically, or that will offload your DSP from Pro Tools to another machine or another instance at least. So let's get going with the templates, and let's start with the most simple one, where I have now I have basically the BBC orchestral from Spitfire, and there I have already created certain folders that includes those instruments. But what you are basically, when you are doing an orchestral template, it's good to have groupings. So that's one thing that you need from a digital audio workstations, to have groupings and folders so that you can put the instruments into certain folders. That is totally, of course, up to you. How do you group them and how and what type of folders you made, but that's a good practice so that even if you have an extensive template, you don't get lost in it, so that you can actually close and open these folders and then work on the instruments in that respect that you are currently recording or playing. So what I have used here is a BBC Symphony Orchestra in a discovery mode. This is a good one in a way that, and then also for the beginners, because this is free. So you can download this for free and use and start practicing orchestral music composition for gaming or for film scoring. Anyway, then once you are getting more advanced, you can also, of course, purchase the core or pro version from them. So then you will start to get actually more options when it comes to articulations and things like that. But in order to kind of make this straightforward, I have actually used and to do this with the Discover version, which is free. So I have already created the strings here, as you can see. So what I have done is that I have created an instrument track and placed the BBC Symphony Orchestra for each and every track. And then what you could do actually going forward, you could even split these tracks to represent the certain articulation. So out of this violin ones, you would have long spiccato, pizzicato, and tremolo. So you could basically bring these in as well. And so then of course you will continue working in creating all these, and then once you have created the tracks, you will group them, and then you know that's basically the best practice to go about with creating a template. So I have done the strings and basses, and when you have the instrument within your track, there is nothing much you need to actually do. You don't need to worry about any type of routing or whatnot. So the only thing that you need to worry about is that you have the right configuration of that instrument in that track. And then if you would like to now play, for example, this one, let's see, I need to go a bit maybe higher. So that you hear it immediately, and then of course you can also start recording MIDI into it and start recording your play. So this is very straightforward. Here I also have now the woodwinds from the same library, or Spitfire Audio Symphony Orchestra. So what I haven't done is that I haven't actually grouped them yet. So how to do that in Pro Tools is that you basically select all ones that you want to group, and then you right click on here and you go and say you move to a new folder. And here actually you don't take the basic folder, but you take a routing folder, and then also you say that route the tracks to the new folder. So that's basically when Pro Tools will automatically then route all these individual tracks into this summing folder, and then you can do a processing in this one. And then basically you can name the folder, like I'm naming it now Woodwinds, and then I create it, and now you can see that it basically changed the mappings into the Woodwinds automatically. So now if I'm playing the piccolo, it will actually go from here to the summing folder, and then from summing folder it will actually go to the master. So this is a good practice when doing orchestral templates, so to group them. And I would say that in any templates, but usually the orchestral templates, they can get quite extensive. So that's why it's good to kind of organize your instrument and instrument groups to the certain folders and summing folders that you can apply processing in those instruments. And then let's still change this coloring to the one so that it matches the others, the tracks. And one other thing when working with templates in Pro Tools is that one good practice that is advisable as well, that when you have lots of instruments and you might not use them all, what you can do here is actually you select them all, and then you can go and make them inactive. So what it will do is actually it will now offload those from the memory and it, so that they don't utilize memory and they don't utilize CPU. So instead, in a sense, if you would not use the BBC strings, you could basically inactivate them and activate them again. And that's something that one could actually also automate, so that whenever you have, let's do one as an example. Let's go and select here a violin. What you could do basically also here is that you know, in a automation, you could basically then do the lane automation for that, so that you pretty much basically then go and disable at least the instrument. If you don't disable the whole track, but you could disable the instrument so that it doesn't basically consume memory. So yeah, so that's one way to go about. But yeah, you can go then, if you want to use these, you just go there, right click, and then you say that you make them active. You could also create a keyboard shortcut for that, so it makes then things even more faster. And you could just basically select an instrument, and then like for example these horns, if I don't want to use them, I can basically go and deactivate them, and it will deactivate the whole track. Or if I want to use them, I'm gonna then activate it again. So that's by basically using keyboard shortcuts, or then different type of macros in devices like Stream Deck or Metagrid or even your SSL. You could program one of the buttons to kind of activate a track. So yeah, I think we have now went through kind of a simpler way of doing an orchestral template with individual instances of an instrument on each and every track, how to inactivate the track, activate it, how to group them, which is essential to kind of keep then the bigger kind of template in order. And the next one that I will look into is that how it then differs when you are using a Kontakt type of an instrument, where basically you have you can actually have one instance of Kontakt, but that actually itself is hosting all the instruments, and in that way actually you are saving memory and CPU, at least to a certain extent. So here I have now a Kontakt, and I have actually used, to demonstrate this, I have used Albion 1 library. So what I have done here is that I have set up Albion Neo, from Albion Neo to have the strings A and B, the woodwinds and brasses. And in Kontakt, what you need to actually look is that that when you have the MIDI, is that it's not omni, but it is basically defined to the channel into which you want to have it. Because if you want to play only the strings A, you want to separate the MIDI channel from the strings B. Here you see that this is a in this case it's a port A, but it's a channel 2. And then if we go down, it's a port A and channel 3. And again, we go even down and port A and channel 4. So MIDI needs to be routed into different channels. Then another thing that you need to note, and what you can do in Kontakt, is that you can define the output so that every instrument that is in the single instance of Kontakt can be routed separately by its own stereo track. And the most convenient way of doing this is that you firstly go and load all the instruments into Kontakt, and then once you have loaded them, you go over here and do a batch function where you say that clear output section and create one individual channel for each loaded instrument. And then based on this, Kontakt will automatically create, now in this case it has created 4 channels, so one for each instrument that has been loaded into the Kontakt. So you don't need to manually do that mapping, the Kontakt will do that for you. But once you have prepared all that in Kontakt, then you basically move into Pro Tools. And here what you need to do is actually that the channel that is having the instrument itself does need to do one configuration, and that is that you need to, from here, you need to have, you cannot use the MIDI chain, so you need to disable the MIDI chain, and then you go and select the individual targets, and then you have the A from Kontakt MIDI and channel 1, so that the MIDI will go to the right instance within the Kontakt. Here you don't need to actually define any inputs, because the channel 1 and 2 will come directly from Kontakt to this track. So if I now play these strings, you can basically then you can hear them, and nothing else needs to be done. But then you need to basically, and no, we can actually do it. Let's do so that I'll just delete this track, and now I go over here and I will insert a track, and I'll insert basically an instrument track. And what I need to do in an instrument track when I insert it and I want to use it for the Kontakt, I need to go from here and then select Albion strings, and then the channel 4 into which I want to send the MIDI 2. Then additionally I need to go to the plugins, and then from here find the contact and find the channel that I want the stereo come from, and in this case it's 7 and 8. So if we go back to the contact, you can from here see that you have 1 and 2, 3 and 4, 5 and 6, 7 and 8. So the brasses will basically will come from 7 and 8. So let's rename this as well, and say that this is a Albion brass. And then we can also follow the coloring scheme that we had above, where the brasses are in red. And now when we close this one and go and play here, I'm getting brasses. Then if I go here, I'm getting woodwinds, and then from here I'm getting the string B section. So this is how you work when you have a kind of a Kontakt type of a library, that you can actually have multiple instruments within the Kontakt, and then save a bit of a memory in that respect, that you basically have one instance of Kontakt, and then you have all the instruments installed within Kontakt instance. Of course, it does not host too many, so you might need to add another Kontakt instance and divide the instruments that you will use to several. But anyway, it can host quite many, but you will of course find out the limits when you start building these libraries. And this would basically apply that you could take any Kontakt instrument and bring into your orchestral template, being that piano or whatever you wish to bring in. This is just an example of like how to deal with one Kontakt instance and multiple instruments within. Okay, so let's move on to the last but not the least one, which is actually the utilizing the Vienna Ensemble Pro server, whereby you actually download the DSP away from Pro Tools into this server instance, where I have now basically set up the different instruments, and in this case I have violin 1, 2 and so on and so forth. So I have created this beforehand, so that we can only focus on the configuration. In Vienna Ensemble Pro, what you of course need to do is that you need to route the audio out from here, and here you see that this is a channel for MIDI 1 and channel 1 and MIDI channel 1 within that first port, or actually sorry, MIDI port 1, channel 1. And there you can have multiple of these. These could well run in a different server. In this case, I just, for the simplicity, I have it in here locally in the same Mac. But when it comes to the basically working with Vienna Ensemble Pro, that the same thing applies here, is that you upload an instance of Vienna Ensemble Pro, you connect into the server, and then you can start doing your mappings. So what I can do now here is that I have now basically said that this will go to this basically will now go to violin and individual target and channel 1, because this is now called violin. I could also do it a bit differently, but that's how I have now set it up. And then I get the audio directly from Vienna Ensemble Pro violin 1 to this one. So here I can't actually set it, but in the remaining MIDI channels I can. So if I now play this, I'm getting that sound of actually processed in my DSP server in the Vienna Ensemble Pro, and it gets routed back to the Pro Tools. And then of course I need to do the same thing here for the others, so that I actually go here and I basically go here and say that okay, channel 2 is a violin 2, and then the audio is now, in this case it's coming from 3 and 4. So if I play now the second violins, and if we look here, you can see that I'm playing the second violins, and everything gets routed correctly. And you of course will go and map all these respectively. So this is channel 3, and the input is kind of, in this case it's coming from 5 and 6, and then let's go double basses. So let's do the last one, so you can definitely, you know, hear the difference. That it's actually, how many is there? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This should be a channel 6. Let's go down here, and this is a channel 6, and then let's do a sneak peek from here. That is 11 and 12 for the double basses. So if I go here and say plug in and Vienna Ensemble Pro server, and now I'm arming this one. I need to go most likely down. To see the double basses being played. Of course I can send all the MIDI commands also for different articulations from here to Vienna Ensemble Pro. So when you are doing a MIDI programming, you can send MIDI commands over this to Vienna Ensemble Pro, so that it recognizes, for example, that if I'm playing, I can change the articulation, for example, in that respect. But you can do many other things, and if there is an interest on this topic, I can also deep dive more to the advanced techniques regarding on using Vienna Ensemble Pro in your music creation, specifically with orchestral templates, where you have a lot of instruments and you want to offload that DSP into the second machine. How in practice then it works? Let's like, for example, let's take and group these into strings. So again, just to kind of highlight that you create a new folder. You have VS strings, and then you route everything over there. So now if I play this, it gets routed correctly to the summing bus of strings, and then from there the master. And then I can also like close it easily, and so it keeps my session clean in that respect. Let's also color this to the green as the others are, so that we are there in line. But then how to use this Vienna Ensemble is pretty straightforward. So of course you have a plugin that you go and you say that, you know, use that plugin. It's not connected by default, of course, because it doesn't know where to connect. It shows your servers in your network. So if you have multiple servers, it would show them here. Then you basically select the instance into which you connect. And then one thing that I mentioned is that once you are having this kind of like single instance and multiple MIDI or instrument tracks, you can't have the chain in enabled. So this will not work. You need to go to an individual targets and then select the channel from there. Now as I'm here in the first one, I can't actually change the channel of where the stereo is coming. It comes by default from this plugin. But now if I go, and I need to go a bit more up, now I'm hearing the piccolo. And if we go into the woodwinds and do the same, so you see that the processing is taking place here, and it does currently the long notes and normal and so on and so forth. So that's how you set it up. And then if you would need to go, like, let's go to oboe from here. This is then of course now it is named by piccolo because that's my first. So this is a bit funny. You could actually create just own track for that instrument and then route the audio differently. So it might be more meaningful in that respect. But as in this example, I just did it like this. However, now I need to actually go from here and then take the it's not 3, 4, 5, 6, it's 7, 8. And if we go and check it out from here as well, it's 7, 8 where the oboe is coming from. And then if I go here and arm it, and now I need to go a bit more. Down. So this is how you can utilize a advanced techniques with Vienna Ensemble Pro. There are other that type of software that are free, but I have used this one for quite long. It's extremely robust and capable and works great with the different digital audio workstations, and it does its job. And I have run a multi-server installation as well, so all that works nicely. And then of course when you are done with the tracks and done the mapping, then of course you wanna create again a folder that you basically have all this summed. And I just call it VSL Woods, so that it's a Vienna Ensemble Woods. And then of course you could change the coloring, but this is basically how you can create orchestral templates, how you keep them tidy, creating these groups, grouping the instruments. Then if you are having all the instruments in one template, as we discussed in the beginning in the case of an example with the BBC Symphony Orchestra, it is good practice, I think, in the beginning actually deactivate or inactivate the tracks. So when you are loading it, it will not take time also to load because all the instruments and all the tracks are inactive. So if you have lots of plugins and things like there, it will actually open fastly. And then when you start to work your way through your composition, then you kind of activate the track by track in that respect, that you basically then start to utilize the instruments that you have there. So that's a good kind of a practice also to have, and make it more easy for your machine in that sense that you only have those tracks that you use are basically then active, and the rest are inactive. And in this way, you can have extensive templates with multiple instances of different type of instruments and blockings and whatnot, and you only activate the track when you need it. But yeah, I think this covers the main tips and tricks regarding on what and how you can build the orchestral templates. I didn't go to the kind of extreme audio routings. I introduced the folders as the summing folders and summing, so routing through these folders. But then of course there is a whole other dimension of, if you want to use effects and what kind of effects you want to then use. For example, in here I have an effect track for Valhalla, so I have reverb and delay as an example. So when I'm playing a string or violin, for example, in this in this respect. So and now if I would like to route this into the reverb, I could do it easily. So all these you can then of course pre-configure and do in your template as well, so that you don't need to do them all every time again. So let's just pull it fully there, so we get some nice reverb from vintage verb. But yeah, these are the practices and ways. I have done an example of creating templates in general, but this was focusing mostly and purely on orchestral templates and certain tips and tricks, how to construct them, how to route, how to use folders to kind of keep it tidy, and so on and so forth. So yeah. Okay, so that was Pro Tools and how to create orchestral templates in Pro Tools, highlighting 3 different ways of doing it, and being the basic one, a bit more advanced with Kontakt, and really advanced with Vienna Ensemble Pro. Next we will do this in Logic Pro X, so remember to subscribe for the channel for more content. Thanks for watching. Bye now.